Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please take your seats. If you would please take your seats. It's 2:59. We're going to start the show on time at 3 p.m. It is 3 p.m., which is the appointed hour. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. In spite of all that's happening in Washington, D.C., the chaos there, in spite of what's happening in the Ukraine and Gaza and Sudan, and on our southern border, and all across the world, right here in Durham, in spite of all that, let us rejoice in this day. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Brothers and sisters of all ages, races, national origins, religions, creeds, sexual orientation. My name is Walter Jackson. For the next 45 minutes to an hour or so, I am chair of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People. Thank you. Thank you. In about an hour, it will be my honor and privilege to watch Senator Floyd McKissick take his oath as the new chair of the Durham Committee, at which time I will silently say to myself the words of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the immortal words of Dr. King, free at last, free at last. At this time, however, it is my distinct honor and high privilege to call to order this annual meeting of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, and welcome all members, friends, and guests who are assembled here with us, and those who are watching online to this annual meeting of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People. Pastor Jonathan C. Augustine, the pastor of this great and historic church, is out of town and will not be joining us today. So it's going to be my pleasure to invite an associate minister, Reverend Lewis, is here to the pulpit to give our opening invocation. Is Reverend Lewis here? Yes. All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Reverend Valerie McIver, and I have the pleasure of serving as one of the associates here at St. Joseph. So for this afternoon, let us bow our heads in a brief word of prayer. Our wise and eternal God, we are grateful for this day. God, we are grateful for you allowing us to wake up this morning and start us on our way, and God, go to church, and for some of us, come back this afternoon. And God, we have come gathered in this place for the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People's annual meeting. God, we thank you for the work of this committee. God, we thank you for their witness and their legacy. God, we thank you for all that have served in any capacity for this committee. God, we thank you how they have, God, showed up and helped and stood in the gap for those that we consider less fortunate and could not speak for themselves. And so, God, this afternoon, as there is a changing of the guards, we pray that you might continue to be with this committee. God, give new vision, new dreams, new hopes, new ideas to every member, every committee, every auxiliary, that the work of your kingdom building might continue in this Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People. God, have your way with this committee. For when you have your way, we stand up and we show up and we prove just who we are with you. So God, move in the lives of these, thy people, and this committee. Allow them to grow closer as the committee that you have called them to be. God, allow them to transform not only Durham County, but the city and the state called North Carolina. God, allow their presence to be even the more as they show up at board meetings and voter registrations in schools. God, have your way. So God, when you have your way, there we'll always be able to testify. If it had not been for the Lord on our side, if it had not been for the Durham Committee, our children might not be educated, our seniors might not have housing, but because this committee showed up and showed out, God, we have a presence here in Durham County. So God, manifest your presence even the more. Bless from the leadership all the way down, God, that they might remember whose they are and who they serve and the purpose of this committee. God, have your way in this annual meeting. Let everything go according to your will and to your way, that at the close of this meeting, they might leave here united, solidified, and ready to march on to see what, God, you have in store for us. Bless your people as only you can. This is our prayer. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you, Reverend McIver. And let me extend to you my apologies as I explained to Pastor Augustine. I used to work with a woman named Valerie Lewis. So when I hear say Valerie, Lewis just flows. So ladies and gentlemen, that is Reverend Valerie McIver. Thank you, Reverend McIver. Again, it's a pleasure to welcome all of you. We're gathered here today for the annual meeting of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, an organization that has been serving the city and county and state for 89 years. Our Constitution and bylaws provide in Article 5, Section 4, that there shall be an annual meeting during which there will be reports from the standing committees and a determination of the direction for the coming year. Now, those of you who know me know that I'm generally one who likes to try to follow the books and play by the rules. But today, I am somewhat casting the rules aside so that we can do something different in terms of honoring the memory of the late Dr. E. Livonia I. Allison, our distinguished chair, former chair, who was funeralized yesterday and given wonderful tributes far more wonderful than we can provide to her today. So we are going to continue the tribute to Dr. Allison, but any tribute we can provide today will be far less than the tribute that we will give her by continuing the work of this organization, building, maintaining, and growing it. Those of you who know Dr. Allison know that she loved and was committed to this organization and to her people and to our work. So again, thank you to all of you for your presence here and your support of this tribute to Dr. Allison. Will all of the chairs, all of the officers, committee chairs, and others who served in this administration for the last 2 years, please stand. As I said, we're not going to give the standard reports, but I want to thank all of these people for the great work that they have done during the past 2 years on behalf of the Durham Committee. Unfortunately, they're not all here, including First Vice Chair Larry Hall and our political committee chair, Attorney Stokes. But again, we want to thank them all for the work they've done. Today, however, is not a day for us to take a victory lap. This day will be a day of recognition of Dr. Allison, and again, transfer the leadership of this organization to Senator McKissick. If you were at the funeral yesterday, you heard some wonderful tributes to Dr. Allison, and you're going to hear a few more today. And I look forward to having you receive those tributes because, you know, Dr. Allison and her husband were firmly committed to this organization and its goals and purposes. Let's keep things moving. I've already taken more than my allocated share of time. In setting the agenda for this meeting, I had no intention of having us to spend the rest of the evening here, which is why I decided to dispense with the committee reports and move right along. But yesterday at the funeral, Bishop William Barber wanted to shut Senator Michelle down, and he wasn't having it. So today, I am certainly not going to try to shut Senator Michelle down. If Bishop Barber couldn't do it, Lord knows I can't. So Mickey, take as much time as you like to share whatever thoughts you have. And we'll also be hearing from some others, including Ms. Jacqueline Wagstaff and Mayor Williams, if he is here. And if he's not, then Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, I'm sure, will step up and knock it out. Mayor's en route. All right, wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for always being there. What's that little phrase you use about Pro Tem means? Latin for I don't want to go, send him. But apparently today he will be here. Thank you so much. Before I call for Senator Michelle and his tribute to Dr. Allison, I'm going to ask Dr. Tara Fikes, our Executive Secretary, to come forth and share with you the resolution of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People. Dr. Fikes.
Good afternoon. It is my honor to share with you this resolution honoring the life and exemplary service of Dr. E. Lavonia Ingram Allison. Whereas Dr. E. Lavonia Ingram Allison was a native of Durham, North Carolina, who noted that it was her mother who instilled in her the pursuit of excellence without excuse from childhood. And whereas, understanding the value and importance of education, Dr. Allison graduated as class salutatorian from the historic Hillside High School in Durham, earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Hampton Institute, now Hampton University, a Master of Arts in Health Education, and a doctorate in higher education from New York University. And whereas professionally, in addition to teaching health and physical education courses in the public school system and North Carolina Central University, Dr. Allison spent most of her career working to improve access to healthcare services in small rural communities, as well as inner city impoverished communities, and has been credited with significantly increasing the number of African Americans and Native Americans who pursued medical careers. And whereas Dr. Allison has been acknowledged throughout her life for her civic engagement and dedication to many local, regional, and national issues, including being honored by her alma mater, Hampton University, the North Carolina Health Association, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, the NAACP, the National Council of Negro Women, just to name a few, in addition to being honored with the Order of the Longleaf Pine Award by Governor James B. Hunt. And whereas in the community, Dr. Allison was a remarkable political leader who led by example, one who was always present, armed with the relevant data to challenge the status quo, ask the tough questions, and advocate for equality, fairness, and justice in her efforts to uplift the Black community. And whereas her political prowess was most prominent in her ability to organize and mobilize groups of people to influence the voting process at the local, state, and federal levels through her service in many capacities with the national, state, and local Democratic Party, and most notably through her service for more than 40 years as precinct chair for Precinct 42 at Shepherd Middle School here in Durham. And whereas during her time, Dr. Allison was also a very active member of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, serving as chair of the Education, Housing, and Political Committees. And whereas in 1997, Dr. Allison became the first female elected chair of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, and served in that role with distinction for 14 years, broadening the committee's work in the areas of health, education, economics, and political action, and remained an active member of the committee throughout her life. And whereas in 2023, the Durham Committee honored her dedicated and longstanding service to the organization and its mission by presenting her the Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the officers and members of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, on this, the 26th day of January, 2025, honor the life and service of Dr. E. Lavonia Allison and express our immense gratitude for her faithful, dedicated leadership and service to our organization. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to the family as an expression of our deep appreciation and gratitude, and that a copy will become a part of the permanent records of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People. Walter Jackson, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Now, those of you who did not know previously why we are paying such a tribute to Dr. Allison, hopefully understand now. In addition to that resolution, I will be presenting a proclamation. I will not read to you what the entire contents of that proclamation will be, but I am proclaiming Dr. Allison as honorary Chair Emeritus of the Durham Committee. In part, that will read, whereas Dr. Lavonia Allison served the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People as chair for 14 years, and it will conclude, now therefore I, Walter A. Jackson, as outgoing chair of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, proclaim and designate Dr. E. Lavonia I. Allison as honorary chair emeritus of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People this 26th day of January, 2025, Durham, North Carolina. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to call on our Civic Committee Chair, Ms. Angelique Stallings, to come forth and preside over the next portions of our meeting. When I became chair of the Durham Committee 2 years ago, I said to our executive committee that whereas there are many things we will be doing What the general public will remember and judge us on is the success of our annual banquet and our success in elections. Due in large part to Ms. Stallings' wonderful work, we had two outstanding annual banquets. The first featuring Governor Roy Cooper, and the one last year featuring Representative James Clyburn. Ms. Stallings, we thank you. We appreciate all that you do. We love the way that you preside over these affairs, so we welcome you now to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have the distinction of having the title of doctor, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, we are here. Thank you. The dean is in the building, so I have to make sure that I act accordingly. Because the dean is here, I got to act right. I do also recognize it is football Sunday. I'm sure that some of y'all are watching on y'all phones and things, so we're going to make sure that we do things in proper order. And as the chair said, we will not be in here all afternoon. Amen, amen to that, amen. I do want to first give honor to the shepherd of this house, Dr. Augustine, and the St. Joseph family. You all are always welcoming and such a wonderful partner to the Durham Committee. So we thank you for that and for always being willing to have us here in your beautiful sanctuary. As of today, when I get sworn in, I will be serving my 4th term as the civic chair. I'm trying to keep up with Zach Hawkins. Where is he? I know he got to be in here. Yeah, so every term you run, I'm running with you, so let's go. That's what we're going to do. But outside of that, we are going to keep the program moving. We want to make sure to get in the appropriate tributes to Dr. Allison, the only female chair. Hopefully we'll have some other ones in the future. And I have some fun stories, as I know you all do as well. But she was such an inspiration. And as the chair said, we will honor her by continuing her legacy. I was very fortunate to be able to secure Representative Clyburn with the help of Congresswoman Foushee and her office. Salima, bonjour, I love you, thank you. Because I was like, Salima, she was like, we got it, we got it, we got it. So thank you, Congresswoman, for helping to do that and for the success of that banquet. So what I will do now, I believe, Mr. Chair, is we want to have our speakers to come up. So we will start with the dean, with the honorable, because we want to give him as much time as he needs. As a lawyer and a politician, we know what that is now. We know what that is, so we're going to give that grace. But if you all will welcome up the longest serving, it's the dean. Y'all know who it is. H.M. Mickey Mashaw, please welcome him to this podium.
Y'all sit down because you're taking some of my time. I appreciate the honor of being able to help us memorialize Livonia Allison. As I told the group yesterday, a lot of you don't know that Livonia and I started out together. We were classmates at Scarborough Nursery School. That was a few years ago. The school was located at the old Colored Hospital. When the Duke family built Lincoln Hospital on Fayetteville Street, that most of you remember, the old Colored Hospital was at the corner of Mobile Street and Cozart Avenue. Proctor Street. And that was where Livonia and I started school together. And I raised a question with the family. I said, you held up the service for 2 weeks, and you wanted me to, if they didn't want me, I made myself want to speak at Livonia's service. But I didn't know I had 2 weeks to try to figure out what I was going to say, and that got to be a problem. Because as long as Livonia and I had known each other, there were many things I could say. So I'm going to try to be extremely short. But if you know somebody for a few years and you know how they act and how you react, then it becomes difficult to try to capsulize those moments. I want to talk about basically 4 things. You know, Livonia had a habit of jumping up in your face. And you couldn't argue with her because she had done her research. She knew how many people voted, and I bet if you asked her, she could tell you who voted and who didn't vote. But I want to, highlight 4 people whose face she didn't jump up in, but she gave facts and figures. The first was Shirley Chisholm. Some of you don't even know who Shirley Chisholm was. And it's a shame, because if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. Shirley Chisholm was described to me after I introduced Livonia to Shirley as that little black skinny woman had nerve enough to jump in that white man's face and say, I'm going to run for president and take all the black votes away from you. And Livonia said, if ever I had an idol, that would be my idol. If ever I wanted to follow anybody, that would be who I would follow. The second person that Livonia would not jump in their face about was, I don't know whether you remember him or not. His name was Walter Fauntleroy. Walter Fauntleroy was the delegate to the United States Congress from the District of Columbia. And I think that in spite of, because of the knowledge that Walter Fauntleroy gave out when he came to speak, Livonia had a great admiration for him. And I think what solidified that admiration was at the end of every speech that Fauntleroy made, he would sing The Impossible Dream. And this was one of the things that Livonia would, I said, Livonia, I know he sings it every time. She said, but it means so much. If people would understand the words in those songs, that they would know what this whole movement is about. All right, the third person that Livonia would not jump in their face about was Jesse Jackson. Fact of the matter was, Jesse had to call me to get Livonia to quit talking to him. I remember Jesse had a speech he was going to give at Duke University one day. And I got the call from Jesse. He said, Mickey, he said, I need you. I need you now. So I went out to Duke at the hotel where Jesse was staying. I said, what's the problem? He said, Livonia's here and won't let me go. Said, what she is doing is she's messing up my speech all the way around with too many facts and figures that she's giving me. Can you get her away from me? And let me tell you, the fourth person who Livonia approached with not with trepidation, but didn't jump in her face, was me. And I don't know how that transition from nursery school to when we got older. But Livonia would talk to me in very civil tones, and then she would say, "What do you think?" And I would give her my thoughts. Now, whether they worked or not, I'll never know. But she was so successful in what she did in keeping her precinct moving, in keeping folks moving. Let me tell you this, folks. That lady knew more than all of us in here combined about voting, about who was doing what to who in terms of politics. And we will miss that knowledge that Livonia had. And I guess trying to close this memory out, Livonia, I made a speech one day that Livonia was at, and I closed that speech with the benediction from Pearlie. Now, many of you don't know Pearlie. Pearlie was the stage play that featured Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee and talked about black folks on the plantation. And Pearlie, the stage play, later was turned into a musical called Pearlie Victorious. But the key part of that whole scenario was the benediction from Pearlie. And I repeated it one night when Livonia was sitting. She came up to me and she said, "Mickey," she said, "black folks need to know that." She said, "Because between what you and Fauntleroy did when Fauntleroy brought out the impossible dream ought to be in every black person's eyes and thought and deed." I didn't do it yesterday because I really wanted to do it here today. Because that benediction from Pearlie really tells the story. And it's difficult because she was the one that made me keep on doing it. That made me try to let everybody know what that benediction meant. And so I finish with you today in the memory of, you don't know her first name? Anybody know her first name? It was Edith. Edith Livonia Ingram Allison. She always wanted me to close out with a benediction from Pearlie. Today, my friends, I find in being black a thing of beauty, a joy, a secret cup of gladness, a native time in every black person's face. Be loyal to yourself, your hair, your lips, your southern speech, your laughing kindness. A black person's kingdom, vast as any other. Accept and full the sweetness of your blackness, not wishing to be white, nor red, nor yellow, nor any other race or face, but this. Farewell, my deep and Africanic brothers and sisters. Be brave. Keep freedom in the family and do what you can for the white folks. And now, may the Constitution of the United States go with you, the Declaration of Independence stand by you, and the Bill of Rights protect you. And may your own dreams be your only boundaries, henceforth, now, and forever.
wanted to wait until I came, until the dean actually sat down, because yesterday they tried to play him off the stage. I said, oh yeah, no, y'all not gonna do that to me. So I stood right over there until he sat down and finished those wonderful words. So thank you for those words of encouragement. I always love to hear you do that benediction. I never knew where it was from. So thank you. Your memory is like, whew. I forget things. I forgot my paper coming up here. So up next, though, in this order, we will have Ms. Jacqueline Wagstaff to come next, and His Honor, the Mayor, Leonardo Williams, in that order to have their tributes to Dr. Allison. Thank you.
Nikki. I don't even know why they have me going after him. But I'm here today to speak on a woman that taught me a lot of things. I'm going to deviate from your program. I brought my son up here with me because I think I have 3 minutes. I'm going to give him a minute and a half, and I'm going to do a minute. But Dr. Allison meant so much to me. And the first time I met her was when I was doing some advocacy work in Northeast Central Durham when Few Garden was existing. And I was doing a program. And somebody told me, you need to go to the Durham committee. And I said, why? And they said, because that's the black organization that'll help you out. So I proceeded to go to one of their meetings, and I met this lady. And when I rolled in and I told her what I was doing, she looked at me and she said, why didn't you come and ask me first? I was like, oh, who is this lady? But from that moment on, we forged a relationship that most of you can't understand. You know, she would call me. We had some bad day and some bad conversations, and then we had some good conversations. But through it all, I learned so much from her. The one thing that I learned the most is how to advocate without fear. Because what I do know that goes on in Durham, there's a lot of people that claim to be advocates, but they have a fear. And one thing I understood about Dr. Allison, she did not fear anyone. She would go from the White House to the outhouse, and she didn't care. But she knew, and every time I met with her, even when her health started to fail her, and she would call around to my house and say, you need to come and get me. I need to go over here and go over there. She would always let me know she was about her community. And that was the one thing that stuck with me. And one other thing, when she passed on Precinct 42 to my hands, I knew what I had to do, because there's only been 2 precinct chairs in Precinct 42, one that lasted 50 years and Dr. Allison, who lasted over 40 years. And now I'm the 3rd person to hold that position. So I have to do what Dr. Allison has commanded me to do. So for some of you that are sitting in here, I'm probably going to be a thorn in your side. Already are. But when I come to those school board meetings and those city council meetings and those county commissioner meetings, I'm going to be in the spirit of Dr. E. Livonia Allison. So understand, when you see me, I'm there on business. And there was one thing she taught me, and most of you have heard this a number of times. There are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent issues. So when you see me, that's what I'm coming for.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't have as long of a history with Dr. Allison as some of you, but at 37 years old, she was in my life for more than 30 years. I was her driver. I was her administrative assistant. I was her Uber Eats delivery person. I was her maintenance person when she needed someone to go check out one of her houses. I was her precinct vice chair and many other things. But one thing that I do know is that she really cared for this community and cared for us as a people. I'm going to tell one quick story that really exemplifies the spirit of Dr. Allison, and as my mom says, reminds us that she was about her business and about the business of our people and our community. We were with Dr. Allison one weekend, and we were riding along, and she called, at the time, Governor Beverly Perdue, and she called her on her cell phone and said, "Governor Perdue, we're on our way over to your office. Not can we come see you, or we would like to have a meeting with you, but we are on our way to your office." We pulled up to the governor's office. There were state troopers out there. Dr. Allison didn't care. She told them to move out the way. We are here to meet with the governor. When we got into the governor's office, we, the folks that were just so excited to be in the presence of the governor, went to shake her hand and exchange pleasantries. Dr. Allison literally hit our hands and told us, "We are not here to exchange pleasantries. We are here on business for our community and our people." That is the spirit of Dr. Allison. It wasn't about her. It wasn't about us as individuals. It really was about our community and the work that we have to do. So I'm just honored to have an opportunity to just share a little bit about her legacy, but most importantly, I'm honored to be able to continue that legacy by advocating for Black folks in this community, across this state, and across this nation. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon. Well. I actually have a little fear standing up here talking about her. One of our first conversation was in 2006 at Shepherd Middle School. It was my first day on the job, my first real job. And there was this little short lady standing, rocking with her hands on her hip like this. And the kids were going to class, and she came to me and grabbed me by my arm. I'm 6'5", 280. And she grabbed me and she said, "You need to do something about the width of these hallways." And I felt she had asked me for the impossible, because she was talking about tearing the hallways down and spreading it because the kids were too tight. They need to be comfortable. And my principal at the time, Kenneth Barnes, said, "Just smile, say yes, ma'am, and keep going." And I did that, and that was a mistake, because she came to my classroom, and as I'm teaching, she said, you going to just walk away from me?" And I wasn't involved in politics at the time, but that was my first interaction. I said, "I hope I never run into this lady again." And then I got into politics. And I had not gone to a committee meeting. I didn't know about the committee at the time. And she blessed me out as if I should have had perfect attendance. And I said, "Okay, I got it. I understand." And she told me, she said, she gave me her address. She wrote it on a little piece of paper, and she said, "You need to come over. We're going to talk." And so I thought it was interesting, but I went. And it took her a while to come to the door, and I went in. It wasn't a, "Hey, how you doing?" or anything. She said, "Sit right there." And she pulled out this big stack of papers. And what it was a strategy of organizing the South. And she said, "This is how we did it. I don't know what y'all young folks are doing, but we knew what we were doing, and y'all need to know what you're doing. So I'm going to give you this, and you need to do your homework. And you need to read this entire packet and then come back to me and tell me what you're going to do here in Durham." And this is when I was running for city council. I made the mistake of not reading every page, because when I went back, she quizzed me, and I answered most of the questions, but not everything. She was really intimidating, but I had so much respect for her. And I was eager to find out how to win her over. And she came to my restaurant one day, and she had some of the collard greens. And she liked them. They had peanut butter in them. And so the next time I went to her house, I took peanut butter collard greens with me. And that was probably the nicest conversation that we've had. And she started running down the facts and figures. And so I wanted to bring that here today, considering where we are. and considering this organization. And I think when the spirit of Dr. Allison, how she'll continue to motivate me is to speak truth to power, speak truth to our existence, and always remain on task with our purpose. I just happened to see these stats, and it reminded me as I was reading them why she was the way she was. This is in 2019. This is the percentage, and well, I think Nate, you don't want to hear, no offense. You good. But it talks about the percentage of white people in positions of power throughout this country. In 2019, the presidency was 100% white, vice president 100% white, Senate 91% white, House of Representatives 73% white, the POTUS cabinet 89% white, governors 98% white, mayors 88% white, military advisors 100% white, federal judges 88% white, police officers 80% white, people who decide which TV shows we see 90% white, people who decide which books we read 90% white, people who decide which news is covered 85% white, people who decide which music is produced 95% white. School teachers, 82% white. Full-time college professors, 84% white. Owners of men's pro football teams, 97% white. Owners of men's pro basketball teams, 98% white. Players, 75% black. And I think about what's happening in this country, and I think about what's happening in our own community. We're sliding backwards in a sense, but we definitely don't have time to waste on each other in this way that we're doing sometimes, the infighting. We have to love each other, and with all of the divide that's happening in this country, this new age Jim Crow, if we don't take care of one another, then we are going to fail, even more as a people. So in honor of Dr. Allison, and I think about the order of this program, and I see the Honorable Mickey Michaud, and I see the Honorable Jackie Wagstaff, and then my name. I think there's a lot of ingredients in that. Legacy, contention, passion, hope. So in the honor and spirit of Dr. Allison, I'll say to you all, I love you. And despite the infighting that we do, I know it's for a good cause. We have a lot of work to do ahead of us, so let me say today, Jackie, we don't see eye to eye a lot, but I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Thank you.
Yep, and Mr. Chair, we'll now move into the special presentations. Thank you to the Honorable Mayor Leonardo Williams, the Honorable Jackie Wagstaff, and of course the Honorable Mickey Michaud for those wonderful tributes. And now we will have some special presentations again to honor the legacy of Dr. Allison. Mr. Chair. Okay, black men are huddling. Well, I don't know what's happening, but okay. I was like, let me see what's happening over here. It's a huddle.
But it's about money.
But it's about money, so we love to hear it. Okay, we're ready? Okay, and we're ready. Mr. Chair, if you would, Chair-elect, here we go.
I've been fortunate enough to be able to present this check to the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People Incorporated from the Durham Committee in the amount of $1,000 for what we have established as Livonia Allison Scholarship Fund. And I believe Mr. Frederick Raven is here, who serves as president of the Durham Committee, Inc., and that is a separate entity from the Durham Committee. And if so, I will present the check to him at this time. And one thing I'd like to say, $1,000 is a wonderful symbolic contribution, but if we really want to honor Dr. Allison, if we really want to honor her commitment to education, if we really want to honor the commitment to the principles that she stood for, we need to make a commitment on an ongoing basis to continue contributions and to hold fundraisers that will make this a meaningful fund that can benefit many. So, Mr. Raven, here is that check.
So I'm glad Pastor Chase is here with me. Pastor Chase is a Baptist minister, and I just happen to be a Baptist, so I know that Baptist ministers often do this, so I'm going to try to follow in that great tradition. When they want you to make a contribution first, they will present theirs. So I have here in my hand a partially made check for $100 as my personal contribution to the Livonia Allison Scholarship Fund. I just haven't had a chance to finish making it out yet. My pen stopped writing. So, Chair Raven, if you would please let me present to you this additional check for $100 to the Scholarship Fund. And at the end of the program, we're going to have a basket right here in the front of the church for anyone else who wants to make a contribution to that fund. You can put a donation in a basket right here at the front of the church. So you'll be hearing more from Mr. Raven later, I believe. All right, thank you.
I had to here again, being as old as I am, you thought sometime run ahead or run behind. There were two things, particularly with the Durham Committee, because of Livonia's devotion to that committee and because of the fact that the Durham Committee so graciously and so adroitly handled the problems in Durham. We didn't face the problems that the other parts of the country face. Many of you know that Martin King was a close friend. And when I invited Martin to Durham in 1956, the first thing he wanted to know was who was that little black lady with the mole on her face that raised so much hell. And I talked, but what I asked for this little extra moment was that I wanted you to understand, as I said before, you've got to know your history. You've got to know that we, at one time, were considered 3/5 of a person. Floyd McKissick wrote a book called 3/5 of a Man. You need to know that. But I wanted to really close with two things. One was a little thing written by Paul Lawrence Dunbar called Life. A crust of bread and a corner to sleep in, a minute to smile and an hour to weep in, a pint of joy to a peck of trouble, and never a laugh, but the moans come double. Black life. We have been a part of the battered, the bruised, the scarred, and the defeated. But if you look at that piano, it has black and white keys on it. And those black and white keys played together bring out every emotion, every feeling that we have. And if you just remember that if we work together, if we play together, we will make the dream, that impossible dream that Livonia loves so much, come true.
Thank you, Dean. If y'all know me, y'all know I like to stay on time. So I'm trying to make sure that we stay on time. But when the dean needs some extra time, what do? You give the dean the time, right? So this is what we do. So the next portion of the program is the swearing in of the officers. And we'll start with the swearing in of the chair. And then all the other officers will come up here for the swearing in, and the swearing in will be done by the Honorable Superior Court Judge Shamika Reinhardt. Please welcome her as she comes. But before we get to that, yes, please rise. All rise for the judge. All rise, Your Honor. We love the judge. Thank you. She always. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we take time to recognize our elected officials before we get to the swearing in portion. I believe everyone is kind of seated here. And I'm just going to ask you to go row by row. If you would stand, your name and your position in how you are serving the community. So we'll start here with you, Mr. Mayor. Councilwoman? I want to make sure that I have acknowledged everyone. Is that Tracy Lovett back there? Yep, Tracy, you want to? Office of the Governor, thank you. I also see our superintendent back there, I believe. Is that our superintendent back there, Dr. Lewis? Thank you for being here. Yes. I also will take this opportunity, thank you, Mr. Chair, to acknowledge any clergy that's in the building. Let's hear it. Mayor Pro Tem, there we go, all the clergy. Yes, everybody is standing. Y'all don't want to introduce yourself. Now, how did clergy don't want to talk? Now, y'all know. No. But we appreciate y'all letting us get to the game, right? Because, Dr. Fikes, what's the score? I know you know. What's the score? Isn't the Redskins playing? They're not the Redskins anymore. What's their team? Them. Mm-hmm. Jaden Daniels is playing. That's who I know. But anyway, anybody else? We need to 13-16, y'all. Keep up with the score for me. Any other elected officials? The light is a little, we're okay? Excellent. So we will start the swearing in process. We will start with Senator McKissick to be sworn in as the chair, and then everybody else here will come and stand here and will be sworn in by the Honorable Shamika Reinhardt.
All right, it is an honor. Good afternoon, everyone, Mr. Chair, and to all who are assembled. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. And so if you will repeat after me, and after this you'll say, I do, I'll prompt you. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and maintain the Constitution, bylaws, and procedures of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People through the leadership position to which I have been elected. I sincerely pledge allegiance to the cause of progress as a member of the Executive Committee to the following mandates. First, I pledge to fairly and diligently consider all issues that come before the Durham Committee, and my decisions and actions will be governed by adherence to the mission of the Durham Committee, which is to serve as a representative of and as a leadership body for the Black citizenry of the city and county of Durham in promoting the welfare of that citizenry in political, educational, economic, civic, and cultural affairs. You may say, I do.
I do.
I will firmly believe in the ideals of democracy and pledge to work diligently to strengthen our society by ensuring equal opportunity for advancement to all citizens regardless of race, color, or religion. I pledge that my social and community action will not be inspired by selfish motives, but inspired by the sole desire to promote the welfare of the community. You may say, I do.
I do.
I pledge to exercise the right of franchise by registering and voting in all city, county, state, and national elections, and to urge all members of my family and friends to do likewise. I will study the merits of the issues which arise and or the character and platform of each candidate for office, and my support shall be given where it is found by the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People to be in the best interest of the entire community. You may say, I do.
I do.
I pledge to acquaint myself with current events and specific needs in the various sections of our community, and will seek faithfully to advance the program of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People on a county-wide basis. You may say, I do.
I do.
I pledge do everything within my power for the general improvement of the entire community in matters of education, economics, political, civic, and cultural affairs, and I will avoid all acts which may retard the general progress of our community. So help me God. You may say, I do.
I do.
Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very nice. And now I will administer the oaths for the officers. If you will each get a Bible and put your left hand on it and raise your right. No, I don't. All right, does everyone have a Bible in which they have put their left hand on the Bible and they are raising their right hand? Put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, and I will prompt you. You got it? All right. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and maintain the Constitution, bylaws, and procedures of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People through the leadership position to which I have been elected. I sincerely pledge allegiance to the cause of progress as a member of the Executive Committee to the following mandates. I pledge to fairly and diligently consider all issues that come before the Durham Committee, and my decisions and actions will be governed by adherence to the mission of the Durham Committee, which is to serve as a representative of and as a leadership body for the Black citizenry of the city and county of Durham in promoting the welfare of that citizenry in political, educational, economic, civic, and cultural affairs. You may say, I do. I will firmly believe in the ideals of democracy and pledge to work diligently to strengthen our society by assuring equal opportunity for advancement to all citizens regardless of race, color, or religion. I pledge that my social and community action will not be inspired by selfish motives, but inspired by the sole desire to promote the welfare of the community. You may say I do. I pledge to exercise the right of franchise by registering and voting in all city, county, state, and national elections, and to urge all members of my family and my friends to do likewise. I will study the merits of the issues which arise and/or the character and platform of each candidate for office, and my support shall be given where it is found by the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People to be in the best interest of the entire community. You may say I do. I pledge to acquaint myself with current events and specific needs in the various sections of our community, and will seek faithfully to advance the program of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People on a county-wide basis. You may say I do. I pledge to do everything within my power for the general improvement of the entire community in matters of education, economics, political, civic, and cultural affairs, and I will avoid all acts which may retard the general progress of our community. So help me God. You may say I do. Congratulations to our newest officers. I got one thing to do. I got to read the poem, Remember the Oath, and then I'm going to be quick. I have one last thing that I have to do, and then I'm going to take my seat. It's from a poem written by the Honorable Elaine O'Neill in 1998 for the officers of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People. And it says, remember the oath. What did you do? What promise did you make? Now you must keep it, no matter what it takes. So when warmongers come to start a war, and the first battle call is your name, remember the oath. When information gatherers press toward your mark, looking for bait, hoping to start, remember the oath. When those who seek to divide ask you to be the knife, remember the oath. When praise seekers look for starring roles, remember the oath. When the lazy get real tired and the energized burned out, remember the oath. The oath should help you carry out your duties and provide a fallback, especially when things get convoluted. In those times, just gather your demeanor and demand the attention of the crowd. Pause a moment, then proudly boast. Well, if nothing else, remember the oath. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor, and congratulations to all of the new officers for the 2025-2027 term of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People. Remember the oath. Remember the oath. Right, Judge O'Neill? That was written in 1998, right, Judge? Yes, remember the oath. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to reintroduce to you our new chair of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, Chair, Senator, Commissioner, all the things, but Chair Floyd McKissick.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Let me thank all of you for being here this afternoon. It's a privilege and it's an honor to take the oath to serve as the chair of this wonderful organization, which is going into its 90th year. Pretty profound, pretty significant, and a lot of responsibility in many ways. And I want to also thank Reverend Augustine and the St. Joseph's family for inviting us here today, opening up this sanctuary. St. Joseph has always been there. When I look back to the 50s and 60s, whether it's Reverend Swan or Philip Cousins Sr. as well as Jr. doing his legacy here, this church has always been open. This church has always been a heartbeat and center of the civil rights movement. If we weren't working out of the basement of the St. Joseph Church over there on Fayetteville Street, which is now known as the Hayti Heritage Center, in case some of you were unaware of that, that was the original St. Joseph Church. I spent many, many days there, many days in the civil rights movement, and actually there as a young child, because at that point in time, St. Joseph's Church actually had a daycare center, and they also offered first and second grade. So I spent time there in first grade. I had Miss Amy as a teacher. Miss Jenkins was another teacher there. So when I say it was a part of this community, it was a part that was integral to this community, and many others started there. I started there, went to W.G. Pearson School later. So I really want to recognize St. Joseph's for its unique role. Likewise, I'm a member of Union Baptist Church here in Durham, and when it wasn't St. Joseph was at the heartbeat and center, Union Baptist Church was the next church that was right out there, particularly under the leadership of the late, great Dr. Grady Davis, somebody who was really a champion in this community for civil rights, someone who didn't mind putting his kids on the line in terms of letting them be some of the pioneers in desegregating schools in this community, someone who really understood the power of the sanctuary, someone who understood the power of the black church to unify, the black church to provide a podium for people to come to share their thoughts, their opinions, and to earn our votes. Because that's what it's about. That's what we got to do. But once again, we got to make sure we're right there in that heartbeating center. We spent a lot of time today acknowledging the contributions of Dr. Livonia Allison. Very deservedly so. She served a powerful, significant role in this community for decades. For decades. Because I'm also remembering that when I first came back to Durham in 1987, a person who was also here was the father of Tracy Lovett, Willie Lovett, who was serving as chair of the Durham Committee. And Willie Lovett, as well as Livonia Allison, as chair of the political committee, were a powerful tag team. They were a dynamic duo. They knew how to mobilize. They knew how to energize. They knew how to go out and make certain that when election day came, regardless whether it was a primary election or a general election, that the African American community knew who our preferred candidates were. They set a roadmap. They set up this organization to provide leadership, not just here in Durham, but throughout the state of North Carolina and through the southeastern United States. That's the legacy that this organization has. That is what it's about when we come together. This organization is not about one of us. I may happen to be the standard bearer that carries that sword and that shield today. I may be the one that leads us today, but you can't lead unless you have a group of people who are loyal and committed and work together cooperatively to get things done. So I congratulate all of you that were sworn in today. We may have different thoughts. We may have different opinions. We may have different perspectives on issues, but we can come to the table with mutual respect, speak our piece, break bread together, and go out united to make sure that we are a powerful organization, because that's what it's about. And it's also about building camaraderie. I remember when I first got back here to Durham in '87, Livonia and Willie invited me to not just become active in the Durham Committee, which I was very excited about doing. I'd known Livonia and Willie for many, many years. When I was up in Warren County, I was chairing the Democratic Party up there. I was president of the Young Democrats up there. And the thing that people don't remember, that back in the 70s, when Jim Hunt first got elected governor in like 76 or so, you go over to the governor's mansion, and there was only a handful of African Americans across the entire state that were part of the leadership team. When I got there, I'd see Willie. I'd always see Livonia. I'd see Harvey Gant from down in Charlotte. I'd see Henry Fry from over in Greensboro. I would be there from Warren County. But you know what? There was probably only about a dozen from the entire state out of thousands of people that might show up. You'd go to a state Democratic Party meeting with the executive committee or the State Department of Transportation. You only saw out of maybe 1,200, 1,400 people were there, a dozen or so African Americans. But yet we were the base of that party in terms of influencing the outcome of elections. Now what we have done and we've done it with the leadership of the Durham Committee, but more importantly, with the leadership of people across this state, is to become a force, a powerful political force, a force if it's united, a force if we work together can bring about great change and substantial change. And that's what we need to do. We need to look at candidates, African-American candidates, we want to make sure we get them elected to office. But we all want to always look at people regardless of their race, regardless of the religion, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. We want to elect the very best people to serve us at every level of government. Every level of government. And that's what it's about. And one thing which I began doing, and I want to thank Sheriff Jackson for his leadership over the last 2 years. Thank you. Please. He deserves this. Sheriff Jackson has done an excellent job. And of course, upon me taking the oath, he becomes Chair Emeritus of this organization by our Constitution. And he pulled this organization together in many, many respects. And I hope to carry on that legacy, carry on that leadership. Well, one thing we began doing together after I was elected chair, before I took the oath today, was meeting with members of City Council. I'm pleased to say I've met with Sheriff Jackson, with every member of City Council, with every member of the county commissioners. We have met virtually with the superintendent and members of the school board. I'd like to go back and have one-on-one meetings with them, or meetings that maybe as great as 2, but whatever, that will not violate open meeting laws. Why? Because you need to have a rapport. We must work together in this community. We have to make certain that the elected officials understand what the priorities of the Durham Committee are. More importantly, we need to understand what their priorities are. We need to know what's coming up on the agenda of City Council, of the school board, of the county commissioners. We need to be aware of it before it comes. And when it does come up, we need to respond quickly, decisively, so people know where the Durham Committee stands. Because that's what it's about today. It's not an organization that can function the way we did 50, 60, 70 years ago. It's not feasible. It's not possible. We have to evolve the way the times have evolved. And that communication is critical if we want to be effective. If downtown, the county commissioners are talking about a training facility for the sheriff, we need to know and let the community know where the Durham Committee stands. If they're talking about the HEART program and expanding the HEART program, if they're talking about sitting in and consolidating 911 centers, we need to let them know where the Durham Committee stands. If the City Council is sitting here looking at issues about how we can confront gun violence in our community so we don't have to look every day at another casualty in our community, then we need to let them know where the Durham Committee stands. And we need to work collaboratively with our leaders. And I want to say that Durham is very privileged to have a wonderful group of leaders that we have elected. They're very capable, they're very able, they're very involved. But one thing I want to know is that when we have a Durham Committee meeting, regardless of whether it is live or virtual, that I hear from at least one member of City Council, one member of the school board, or one member of the county commissioner that can bring us up to date on what is on their agenda. All right? So that you know and that you can ask questions and you can be aware of the issues that are before us. This is a day and a time and era where we cannot sit back. We cannot become complacent. We cannot take things for granted. Look at what has occurred just in the last couple of years. All right? Last couple of years. And we actually look at the last week as well. We don't have to look very far. All right? We know one thing. Voting Rights Act that we used to rely upon to make sure there was pre-clearance provisions so that when counties in North Carolina went out there and made changes to their voting systems, or ways that people participated in casting their rights to vote, or the districts that people were able to elect people from, that they got pre-cleared by the Justice Department, well, they got struck down by the Supreme Court. Section 5 is gone. It's gone. We don't have that anymore that we can depend upon. And we look at affirmative action in education. It's dead. It's gone. And we look at Roe v. Wade. It's dead. It's gone. And this week, with the announcement of President Trump, diversity, equity, and inclusion is dead and gone when it comes to the United States government. And he also brought a halt to work being done by the Justice Department Division of Civil Rights that was actively involved in ongoing litigation to examine issues and litigate issues that affected the rights of others in this country that were discriminatory. It's been brought to a standstill. A standstill. They're not going to litigate it anymore. My friends, this is something that we have to be deeply concerned about. This is something that we have to be engaged about. In Durham, we have a different community. In Durham, we don't have to put everything on the table in the forefront because we got good people going to look out and make sure that when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, we're doing the right things. But you know what? We cannot know that across the state of North Carolina that that's going to occur. We cannot know that when it comes to our judicial system, what will occur. And yes, we got to make sure now, more than ever, that we get out there and that we work, that we get out there and recommit ourselves, that we get out there and that we wake up those that are asleep. Now, you hear a lot of folks complaining about the woke people in this country. They want to go back to sleep, all right? They don't like being woke. And that's a challenge. That's a problem. They were woken up to injustice and inequality, and they were forced to deal with it in front of them. But they don't want to deal with it anymore. That social consciousness, that level of awareness, they're retreating from it. But you know what? We cannot let them retreat. We cannot sit back and say the hands of time can be reversed. We have to be vigilant. We have to do what Dr. Allison would have done. She will stand up courageously with conviction and speak out regardless of what the issue may be because it's important to our community. And as Jackie was saying earlier, she talked about never having permanent friends, never having permanent enemies, but always look at the issues and look at our interest in what we do. She'd also say, when it comes to issues involving government, look at who pays and look at who benefits. All right? When she was chairing up the education committee for the Durham committee, it never, ever miss a Board of Education meeting, okay? That's the type of diligence we're talking about. So I say to you, committee chairs that are taking on these responsibilities, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of resources. I will personally assist you in any way and every way that I can. And I also will say and commit to you as an organization, I will be there to help get those resources that you need, whatever they may be, so that you can carry out your duties, carry out your responsibilities, and carry out the plans that you would like to execute. I can also say that one thing we'll be doing, and we'll do it in the next quarter, is have a retreat where we can sit down and we can strategize and we can talk openly and candidly about what we need to do in terms of setting priorities. Okay? That's critical. And we're going to do it openly, respectfully, even though we may disagree at times. But I honestly believe there's going to be far more areas of agreement than disagreement. And yes, when it comes to getting young people involved, we absolutely have to do it. It's imperative. And that means if we need to go over to North Carolina Central and have some meetings over there or pull people together, whatever that tool, whatever that mechanism, however we need to communicate, we have to do it. Because young people today, they're not sitting there reading newspapers anymore. They get their news and their information from all types of sources. So we got to get to them and reach them where they are. And I can promise you that when it comes to Floyd McKissick, he won't be afraid to speak up. He won't be afraid to speak out. He won't be afraid to say this is where the Durham Committee stands and this is what we are advocating for. And we will work across the aisle with organizations and people who are like-minded that can help us get things done in this community. And that's my pledge to you. So on this occasion, I simply say, thank you for allowing me the privilege to serve as your chair. Please offer me the support that I will need when I come to you. Please make a commitment to us working together cooperatively, collaboratively for the good of our community. And let's remember, when that Durham Committee was established some 90 years ago, people came together that were like-minded but had different opinions, and they worked together. It's what resulted in R.N. Harris getting elected as a member of the Durham City Council back in 1953, and later being elected to the school board in 1958. That's what resulted in so many people in this room who are elected officers today, including myself, being elected to public office because of what the Durham Committee could do. All right? And years ago, we met at that chicken hut down there, and I attended those meetings with Willie and Livonia, and we had the People's Alliance there, we had the Durham Voters Alliance there, and we got things done, and we talked about people in various communities in Durham that had potential, that were like-minded, that could stand together and work together to get things done. We've done it before. We can do it again. We have a rich legacy. We have a rich history. It's up to us. We now have that proverbial baton to pass on to the next generation. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about our children. It's about our grandchildren. But it's making certain that regardless of who you are, regardless of how you got here, regardless of what your color of your skin is, or your religious conviction, or your sexual orientation, that you have the right to live up to your highest human potential, and that the Durham Committee will be standing there to open up those doors for you. Thank you so very much. I look forward to serving as your chair. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are about to wrap this up so everybody can go to the chicken hut and wherever else they need to go. But I do want to just publicly say I can now go back to calling him Action Jackson. Thank you. It has been a privilege to serve with you. We sparred a lot, but in that sparring, it helped me to grow in my service and as a person, and it helped with my patience, and I know I tested yours. So I thank you. I thank you for that, but thank you, Action, for your service to the committee and to the community all of these years. So as we wrap up, I do want to just say that we are moving into 90 years of this organization being in service to the Black people of Durham. The banquet date has been set. Again, 90 years. So I hope that you bring everybody out, everybody, to celebrate the service of 90 years. It's not a lot of organizations that last that long and have the impact that we have. So I hope you all will join us on August the 16th. That is the banquet date, August the 16th. That information will be going out sooner than later. I also want to make sure that I acknowledge the Civic Committee, Rosa Anderson, who is the vice chair. I don't think she's able to make it. I'm sure she's doing some with NCCU students somewhere because that is her love. Dawn Baxton, our chief public defender. Dawn, I saw her somewhere, there she is, and Grace Wilson back here. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do. If y'all can give them a hand, thank you so much. Y'all see me, but they do the real work. I just get to throw on a little makeup and look cute, but they do the real work. That's how we do. So all of the new officers, if you will see Renee right here, she has your certificate for you in recognition of being in your office. Renee, raise your hand if you will stand up. Renee right here. She has your certificate for you, so if you all will see her, it is in alpha order, so just give her a chance to look through it to find your certificate for you. What I will say in the wake of everything that is going on in our country, no matter what, no matter who is in power, we know who is in control. So let's remember that as well. And so now, so we can get to the football and the chicken wings and all the things, we are going to bring up the Reverend Dr. Percy Chase. We're going to bring himself up, he said, so that we could close us out. Thank you so much.
Dan, may we pray. Father, you have seen what we have done, but we cannot see. Our plans and our schemes have been set for motion, but we cannot see. But you can see. We only ask that you would take your hand and take this committee and help her to continue to do what she has always done, that which is right in your sight. And now unto the King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God, be honor and glory forever and ever. Let us all say, amen.
Well done. Absolutely.